Jennifer Aniston versus J.D. Vance. Is Jennifer Aniston right in criticizing J.D. Vance for his comments about childless cat ladies? That's the first thing we're going to cover today. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my predictions for this election coming up, Kamala versus Trump, and we'll see what else we have time for today. I think I wanted to talk about maybe contraception, hormonal birth control, and brain tumors. But let's just get into this Jennifer Aniston versus J.D. Vance thing first. Welcome to The Shift if you're new here, where we talk about building healthy whole women for stronger families and a thriving society. And it's very fitting. We're talking about childless cat ladies today. Let's take a look at this clip of J.D. Vance, who we all know by now is Trump's VP running mate. And there was this clip that was pulled from an old visit he did on Tucker's show back when Tucker was still on Fox News. And Jennifer Aniston shared this clip, which was actually shared first by Ron Filipkowski, who was this leftist Twitter guy that just loves to bash conservatives all day long on Twitter. And he shared this clip and wrote, J.D. Vance says women who haven't given birth like Kamala Harris are childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and have no direct stake in America. So let's watch this clip and then we will discuss Jennifer Aniston's response.
It doesn't make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it. Saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
And Jennifer shared that, and she wrote on her Instagram stories, I truly can't believe this is coming from a potential VP of the United States. All I can say is, Mr. Vance, I pray that your daughter is fortunate enough to bear children of her own one day. I hope she will not need to turn to IVF as a second option because you are trying to take that away from her too. That's not at all a response to what J.D. Vance was saying in this video. I understand that Jennifer Aniston is probably a little bit offended and hurt by those words because from what I have read online and from what I've seen in interviews and stuff, Jennifer Aniston struggled with infertility. And I think she was doing some fertility treatments, maybe something like IVF. Maybe she tried egg freezing. Who knows what she tried? I don't know if she was that forthright about everything that she's done in terms of fertility treatments. But I'm sure this is a sore subject for her. So I'm going to come at it from first a more compassionate point of view, because as a mom, it would kill me to not be able to have kids, even if I really wanted to have children. And Jennifer Aniston, I think after she broke up with Justin Theroux, she was a little bit more honest about her fertility struggles. There was a lot of speculation when she broke up with Brad Pitt many, many years ago that one of the reasons that he left her for Angelina Jolie was because Jennifer Aniston didn't want kids and Angelina Jolie wanted a whole litter of kids. Who knows if that's true? I don't think that she's ever spoken directly to that, but she's obviously hurt by these comments. And I will, again, first come from a compassionate position and say, I know that women who struggle with infertility and really want kids, it probably can be very difficult to hear these words, childless cat ladies. The one supplement that everybody should be taking, regardless of what stage you are in life, is organ meat. Organ meat capsules like these pack a huge punch for nutrition, electrolytes, minerals. They're so good for cardiovascular health, your lymphatic systems, your cognitive function. Ladies, it's even good for your hormones and your fertility. This bison trifecta here has all three. It's got the liver, the heart, and the kidney, and it comes from grass-fed and grass-finished bison, which is known as one of the most nutrient-dense animals on the planet. And you can use my code GINA10 for 10% off any and all orders. This is a wonderful product. I take this every single day. I've taken it through my pregnancy, taken it through postpartum phases, and it's so good to support a healthy, active lifestyle. It's known as nature's vitamin. So use my code GINA10 for 10% off. You can go to the link in my show notes to get yours today. My heart is with you. It pains me to see women who are struggling with infertility, number one. Number two, it also pains me to see them hurt and offended. I would not want you to feel like people are trying to intentionally hurt you. However, having said that, he is so clearly not talking about women who struggle with infertility. If you listen to what he's saying here, he's talking about the country being run by childless people. And this is something that I actually agree with very strongly. I strongly oppose the country being run by adults who have no children, who have no skin in the game, who have no family. Because the concept of family and children and providing a future for our children and our children's children, that will always be a very abstract concept to them. And for me, personally, like I've said before many times on the show, what are my politics? My politics are supporting the American Christian family. That's the most important thing to me when it comes to politics. So whenever I look at someone's policy, whenever I look at any politicians, I want to know, how are you going to support the American Christian family unit? Because for me, that is the bedrock of a thriving moral society, particularly the bedrock of American society. So if you are somebody who doesn't have any kids, doesn't plan on having any kids, doesn't have a family that you take care of yourself, the concept of the family unit will always be abstract to you. I'm sorry, it will be. And if you listen to what he's saying, he pointed out politicians, corporate oligarchs. He's talking about the Democrats being largely run by childless people like Kamala Harris, AOC. And I know people are like, oh, Kamala has 2 stepkids. She married that guy, Doug, when his kids were like teenagers. They were already grown up. So I am sorry to say, I know this might be offensive to many people, but Kamala has never raised children. She does not know what it's like to raise kids and have them rely on you to set up an environment and ultimately a world that's going to be safe and thriving for them. She doesn't know what that's like. And that to me is extremely important, especially when it comes to someone who's running for the presidency. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But JD Vance he's 100% accurate in this clip where he's talking about the Dems and liberals are largely run by a lot of these childless people. And he uses the term childless cat ladies sort of as hyperbole and also to really make a point. And I don't take offense. I don't mind him using that phrase because I think it actually has a big impact because it paints a picture of these people who are not only childless, but they are anti-natalist. And that's really the heart of what people like JD Vance are saying when they're talking about the liberals and the corporate oligarchs. They're all childless. Not only childless, they're anti-child, anti-family, anti-natalist. And this is really the heart of the New World Order. They want people to have fewer kids. They constantly scare young people into thinking that the world is already too overpopulated. If you have kids, that's a very selfish thing. How could you bring kids into this world because we're already low on resources and it's hard enough as it is to provide for everybody. It's all lies. It's all propaganda. We are not overpopulated. Our world can obviously handle more people. The United States can obviously handle more people. Have you ever taken a flight across the country? Have you ever seen all of that bare land? There's so much land, even in the United States, that's not occupied. It's outrageous to claim that we can't have any more kids because of climate change and a lack of resources. No. So he makes a great point. We are ruled currently by a political party that constantly scares people into not having children and is anti-natalist because they want the New World Order. Because the fewer kids you have, the fewer things you're going to own, the more you're going to be susceptible to brainwashing, the more easily the government can control you and take control of your assets and your food and everything they want. They want to be handed over to the government. And it's easier when you don't have a strong family unit. Because remember, the family unit is the strongest, the strongest way to resist tyranny and to resist a tyrannical government. That's like one of the best things about the family unit. And the more they shrink the family unit, the more they break apart the family unit, which in my personal opinion started when they broke away the nuclear family from the extended family. I think that's when divorce rates started skyrocketing. That's when it became much easier to send kids off to be educated by the public school system and then eventually the universities and be brainwashed into buying into radical feminism and abortion and body positivity and the LGBTQ LMNOP agenda. That's where it all really started. Because when you break down the family unit, the people in that family unit become much more hyper individualized and they come to rely on the government, which is becoming more and more tyrannical. So that's what he's saying here. And that's really, if anyone is truly plugged in to what is happening in our country, truly plugged into what's happening politically and culturally, he has his finger on the pulse. I don't really know anything else about JD Vance. I'll admit, I just don't. I'm not, in many ways, I'm not really following politics. In some ways I do. I follow mostly cultural things. If you guys listen to my show, you know that I talk mostly about cultural issues, especially as they relate to women and families. But this short clip here, that makes me kind of like JD Vance. I don't know much else about him. People are sharing this clip and they're like, look how horrible he is. I'm like, you guys are actually convincing me that I kind of like him. I like stuff like this because it shows me that he's aware of what's happening, particularly on the Democratic side. And notice in this video, there was nowhere that he said that women who don't have children are any less worthy. Just because we don't want somebody in a position of major leadership, a position that holds major power in this country, does not mean that that person is less worthy or that we hate them or we dislike them or they should be shunned from society. It's just, why can't we agree? We used to agree on the idea that somebody who is in a position of power must possess a certain list of qualities, because being in that position of power requires many different things. You have to have many different capacities in order to step into that role successfully and to lead American people. I don't know why we're opposed to making a list of qualities that these leaders should have in order to be leaders. Come join the best women's health experience online today. My women's health group called The Shift is a wonderful online community of hundreds of women who are dedicated to improving their health and their wellness. In my group, you get access to so many different things that are going to help you improve your health, whether you want to lose weight, balance your hormones, improve your fertility, whatever it might be. Every month, we do a different health challenge in my group. Sometimes we do fitness challenges. Sometimes we do meal prep challenges. Sometimes we do challenges for balancing your hormones. And there's always something new to work on. So we're constantly moving forward together. I also offer recipes and weekly workouts in the group. And there's so many webinars and interviews and exclusive podcast episodes with guests where we can talk about an array of topics that aren't really allowed to be talked about online, like on YouTube. I've got interviews with holistic OBGYNs, holistic practitioners, frequency medicine doctors, nutritionists, doulas, everything that you might be looking for. And of course, we talk about health from a holistic perspective. We talk about marriage, motherhood, and we're able to share a lot more information in there that we might not necessarily be able to share online on YouTube. So go to the link in the description in the show notes and join The Shift, my women's health group. It's at a really affordable price. We've got so much going on there, and I have additional programs and weight loss programs in there if you're looking for something additional. So join us. We've got hundreds of supportive women who are on the same path to improve their health and their lifestyle, and we'll see you inside The Shift. Why wouldn't you want to put these leaders up to a test to make sure that they're up for the job? And for me personally, I want to see that these people who are major leaders in the country have a family. Yeah, I want you to be married and have kids. Yep. Yeah. I don't know why that's offensive to anybody, but that's what I want in my political leaders. If you don't want that, okay, but that's what I want. So when JD Vance talks about this, he's not bashing women struggling with infertility. And I don't want to sound mean, but this response from Jennifer Aniston is really emotionally driven, and it's not at all relevant to what JD Vance is saying. Like, it's so passive aggressive too. I pray that your daughter doesn't struggle with infertility one day and have to resort to IVF. Like, what? What the hell are you talking about? Infertility and IVF? Like, it's not even relevant. It's so passive aggressive. It's so childish. It's not at all relevant to what we are talking about here. This is why sometimes, like, some people should just stay out of the political conversation. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who listen to me and they're like, that girl needs to stay out of political conversation. Fine. But this is stupid. This is such a dumb response. And anytime somebody says, oh, I really hope your daughter doesn't struggle with fertility, they're hoping that your daughter struggles with infertility. That's like literally what they're saying. They're saying, oh, I really hope that they don't. But in their mind, they're really hoping that they do struggle with whatever it is they say they don't want to see your daughter struggle with. So now coming down to the idea of someone running for president without a family, I don't think that Kamala, out of all of her so-called qualifications to be president, which in my opinion, she has none, I think one of the biggest reasons that she should not even be considered for the role of the president of the United States is because she does not have kids of her own. Now, if we are talking about a person, a man or a woman who maybe had infertility issues for a long time and they adopted children and they raised children from a young age, like maybe that could be an exception, sure, because they know what it's like to raise children. But Kamala has no idea what it's like to be a mom to young kids, to bring them into maturity and to release them into the world. She doesn't know what that's like. It does not count to be a homewrecker. And wasn't she a homewrecker? I don't know. Maybe I'm joking. I'm joking because I'll probably get shadow banned and flagged and reported for saying something like that. But she stepped into this family with grown children that were like 16 years old. That's not raising kids. And I personally want a president, man, preferably a man, who has kids, who has a family, who has raised kids, who knows what it's like, who has skin in the game, who the family unit is not an abstract idea to. And I forgot who, I think it was Will Chamberlain. He tweeted something. I don't have it pulled up, but he said one of the biggest things that we're not even addressing, one of the biggest reasons why Kamala shouldn't be president is because she doesn't have kids. She's not a mom. And that's, I'm not saying it has to be a law. I'm not saying that we have to establish some kind of policy that doesn't allow people to run for president who don't have kids. I'm just saying that I'm not going to vote for somebody who doesn't have kids. And I think it's something that we should all seriously consider. I think that's something that you should really think about. Do you want somebody who is making policies that affect your family, that person who doesn't have a family? So you're comfortable with someone making decisions and ushering in policies that affect families, but it doesn't affect them. No, you got to have skin in the game. Sorry. And I know this is difficult to say to people who are struggling with infertility, but I also want to point out that out of this whole group of childless people to which we are referring, people struggling with infertility make up a very small minority of that group. Okay, so the people who we refer to when we say childless cat ladies, the vast majority of those people are childless by choice. They hate families, they hate kids, they get online and complain about children being in the grocery store out of all places. They are anti-natalist. They make fun of adults with kids. They make fun of families. They mock children. They're anti-kids, anti-natalist, anti-family. That's the majority of the people in this group to which we refer as childless cat ladies. Is there a minority of people in that childless group who are struggling with infertility and want kids? Yes. But that doesn't mean that we should completely change our mind about the entire group of childless people just because there's a small minority of these people who want to become parents one day. And I also think that, people who want to become parents, this is going to be a really, really controversial thing for me to say, but I think there's something wrong with adults who don't want kids at all. I think some screws are loose because it is like just your biological desire to have children, because everything that your body does, especially as a woman, everything your body does, from your menstrual cycle to the way your hormones function, to the way your brain functions, to the pheromones that you emit every month, every part of your body is deeply related to your proclivity to reproduce. That's what it's all related to. And that's something so that's why when I look at these women who don't want kids, I'm like, there's something wrong with you. Because if your body were healthy and if your body were functioning the way that it's designed to function, you would constantly be wanting to reproduce, because that's how we're created. Now, when we're talking about the very small minority, the very small exception, somebody like nuns, women who have completely devoted their life to celibacy, to the church, this is obviously a very small minority and probably the only exception, because they have chosen to deny their biological desires in order to devote themselves 100% and fully to the church and to people in need, to volunteering, to serving other people. It's not that they deny their biological desires. It's that they are choosing to replace that with something else. They're choosing to, I guess, for lack of better terms, they're choosing to ignore these biological desires and devote their life to service of others and to Christ and the church, obviously. But other than that, women who just don't want kids, even men who don't want kids, I'm like, I'm sorry, but there's something a little bit off with you. Probably one of the most controversial things that I'll allow myself to say online. I believe many more controversial things that I don't allow myself to say online because I'll get kicked off and whatever. But that's what I believe. And so I think that if you have made it to 45, 50 years old and you have the whole time been like, I don't want kids. I want to live my life. I saw this tweet of somebody saying that I spoke to a 72-year-old woman the other day and they reminded me that you can either have kids or you can take a first-class flight. And I'm like, seriously? This is what here it is. Here. Seth Dillon shared it. It says, flying first class is just sitting in a slightly wider seat for a few hours. Okay, but first let's read the tweet the screenshot that he shared. Someone named Alexa Curtis said, I just met a 72-year-old woman who's been telling me about her life. Best quote, she said, you can either have a house and kids or you can fly first class. I want to fly first class. Those are your options. Like, there's something wrong with you. Sorry, there's something wrong with this person. Seth Dillon responded and said, flying first class is just sitting in a slightly wider seat for a few hours. To treat small comforts like this as being greater than the infinite joy of raising a family is to sell yourself short in the most dramatic way possible. It's like turning down a banquet with a king to eat some stale crumbs you found on the floor. I mean, yeah, that's true. But for me, the even bigger issue is that there's something wrong with these people. There's a couple of screws loose if you actually believe that flying first class is better than having a family, if you think that that's like more normal than not having kids. I'm sorry. So that's why for me, I would never vote for somebody who doesn't have kids when it comes to the presidency. And then there's this other tweet I got from Ajax, who was on my show when I had that podcast with my friend Mike. He does a lot of content about fitness and health, but he also talks about political and cultural issues. He shared this tweet from someone named Emily Nussbaum. And what she said here is, I remember in my 30s, I had this feeling that people saw me as less than fully adult because I wasn't married and had no kids. But I also thought, hey, that's kind of self-centered. I'm probably being paranoid. And then I married and had kids, and I realized I was 100% correct. Instant cred. And then her next post says, it's almost refreshing to see someone like Vance be so blunt about this warped, simple-minded value system. When it's right there on the surface, you can fight it. And then Ajax said, people without children never fully grow up. And this is another really controversial thing to say. But yeah, I think he brings up a really good point. I think that when you have kids, it completely changes everything for you. And it really does make you grow up in a way that probably no other experience in life can make you grow up. And that's one of the many reasons why it's important for me to have a president who has kids and has a family, because they have gone through a maturing process and a sharpening process that cannot be bought or earned through anything else. Dr. Taylor Burrows, she just had her first child. She said having kids helps you self-actualize, yet they can also simultaneously have an even more active connection to their inner child because they play and unplug more. But yeah, it helps you self-actualize. In other words, it helps you grow up. It helps you become the best version of yourself. And I want a president who has gone through that experience. So a couple words about Kamala's campaign. Before Kamala was like officially announced, when Biden had just put on Twitter that he wasn't going to run in this year, in this campaign. And remember at the time people were like, does Biden even know that he's not running in this campaign anymore? Because it was like a series of tweets and a letter, but nobody had even seen him. But anyway, when he announced that, my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, it's going to be a landslide. Trump's going to win this year and we get a better economy coming up in 2025. How exciting. Yay. Trump's going to win. I had this thought initially. I was like, this is awesome news for us. Trump's definitely going to win because who are they going to put that can stand up against Trump right now? I got to say, guys, and I don't know if I'm black-pilled and I really hope I'm wrong, but I think Kamala's going to win this election. Win For those of you who are just listening to the audio, I'm doing win in air quotes, but it doesn't matter whether it's in air quotes or not. I think that Kamala's going to win this election. I underestimated people, or maybe I overestimated them is a better way to put it. Whenever Kamala was announced, I was like, nobody likes her. This is great. This is also good for Trump because nobody likes Kamala. Nobody actually wants to vote for her. She has no accomplishments, no accolades. All she has going for her is that she likes to switch her ethnicities back and forth depending on the political situation. But over the last couple of weeks, I've changed my tune. I see a lot of things. I saw clips of her rally in Atlanta, Georgia, and you cannot fake that kind of electric crowd. You can't. People were like so excited to be there. Thousands and thousands of people filling up the auditorium, so excited for the chance to vote for her. And they were super supportive. And it actually felt electric to me. And I think that some of us are in denial about how much of a chance Kamala has. I really think so. And yeah, sure, people love her for all the wrong reasons, but that doesn't matter. They still love her. They will come out in droves to vote for her. And then you have all these dumb white women who are coming forward and they're like, oh, remember, everybody, Black women need our help. I bookmarked this tweet of this, or maybe I actually quote tweeted it, of a picture of these white women who were talking about how important it is, here we go, to help Black women. So this is shared from Moonchild. Time to do our part, white women. Black women cannot do it on their own. Hashtag answer the call 2024. Look at this. Look at that. Wow, that's just a blob of white liberal women. And I tweeted this and I was talking about just how racist white liberal women are. What is that phrase? The soft bigotry of low expectations. And these white women have built an entire personality on this white savior complex. And they selfishly parade it online and they use it as social currency. They think that every time they post something on Facebook or Instagram supporting people of color, that they're going to get points from their friends, they're going to virtue signal, they're going to look like the very best versions of themselves because we love everybody, no matter what color. We love them and we support them. And yeah, you can say that. How do you even know this is genuine? Maybe these people are getting paid to post this. But I'm telling you, when I saw these clips of Kamala at her rallies, I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, people are really dumb enough to support her and vote for her no matter what. And that's a scary thing. I think that Kamala is going to win. And I hate to say it. I hope I'm wrong. I pray I'm wrong. But I just don't think that it's looking good for Trump, which means it's not really looking good for us. And I also think you probably saw in my episode with Alex Feinberg, because he spoke about this too. There's going to be a lot of shenanigans happening this year around election time, especially around election day. And I don't want to be a Debbie Downer or a doomsday person, but I am kind of black-pilled, I'll admit. I think there's a lot of ways that we should be preparing for this election cycle. I think that there's a high likelihood of things like power outages, blackouts. The power grid is a lot more fragile than people think it is. And if your power goes out, if your electricity is out for an extended period of time, it's not going to bode well for any of us. And I think it was also Alex Feinberg who came on my show months ago, probably even last year at this point. He said, your neighbors are only friendly because they're warm and they're fed. So I don't mean to scare you or frighten you, but especially if you have a family, even if you don't have a family, even if you live alone, it's just as important to prepare. Okay, stock up on things like freeze-dried food. Have like 3 to 6 months of food supplies, non-perishable items, freeze-dried food. Make sure you got some ammo. Make sure you have a source of filtered drinking water. I don't have a good recommendation yet. I'm still looking, but there's lots of options out there where you can just get it's almost even like a huge water bottle. Any water you put through it will be filtered. So you can go to a lake or a creek or some body of water and get water in order to drink because, God forbid something happens, you're not going to have access to filtered drinking water 24/7. Get a generator, something that's going to give you, even they have these like solar panel generators that'll help you like charge your phones and stuff. I would also really recommend any medical emergency supplies, because if communications are shut down, if there's some sort of blackout, you're not going to be able to go to a hospital if you have an infection, heaven forbid. Speaking of, I mean, this is a first aid emergency kit, but the wellness company has really good medical emergency kits. So and it has things like ivermectin, amoxicillin, Z-Pak, a lot of these medications that can help in times of emergency. You're probably going to see the ad on the show, but this is a great time, guys, to stock up on stuff like this. You can use my code GINA10 for 10% off all orders. It's a good time now to invest in these medical supplies, because you just don't know what's going to happen. I'm just saying, I hope I'm wrong, but it's better to be prepared and be wrong about these things. But that's all the things that we're stocking up on. Like, I recently stocked up on medical supplies because you just don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen. One thing I always carry in my car or in my kid's diaper bag is a first aid emergency kit, because accidents always happen and you never know what might fall at your feet. You might be on a road trip with friends, taking a vacation with family, out hiking with your kids. Whatever it is, you want to be prepared. And this kit has everything you need to treat over 30 different medical conditions and emergencies, including bleeding and bite wounds, anaphylaxis, toothache, skin infections, UTIs, dermatitis, and more. And all you need is one kit to be prepared for unforeseen emergencies. I always have one stashed with me on the road, and now you can get one for 10% off with my code GINA10. That's 10% off of any and all purchases from the wellness company. And all you need is one of these to get started. So click the link in my show notes and get one for yourself. But enough of that doomsday stuff. I don't mean to scare anybody, but it is good to prepare. Let's move on. I was going to talk about the study that came out, I think, last month or a couple months ago, showing the connection between potential brain tumors and the birth control pill. But I think the Ballerina Farm response is a little bit more interesting than that, and it's more timely. So you probably saw that Ballerina Farm was featured in an article in the Sunday Times, where a journalist went to their home and interviewed them, spent 4 hours, I think, in their home, a lot of time with Hannah and her husband, Daniel. And it turned out to just be a total hit piece, where the journalist made it sound like Hannah is oppressed by her husband. Her husband is an overbearing man who stole her from Juilliard and forced her into this horrible life where she has to be a mother to 8 children and live on a farm and give up her dreams. So after this article came out, it elicited the exact response that this writer wanted it to elicit. It resulted in thousands, probably if not millions, of angry, bitter women online flooding Ballerina Farm's pages and claiming that she was the victim of an overbearing husband, and saying that Daniel was a horrible guy. And they're now obsessed with leaving messages or leaving comments on her page about going to Greece, about the egg apron, because there was another video where for her birthday, she opened up a present and apparently she wanted tickets to Greece, and the present was like an egg apron. And people are really mad about that. I don't know the full context of that because I didn't see those videos as they were coming out. But lo and behold, it turns out that there was leaked audio recording of the actual interview with Ballerina Farm. And it shows that, of course, the so-called journalist completely took things out of context, completely ignored very relevant details in the interview in order to paint a picture of Hannah Neeleman being oppressed and Daniel Neeleman being this overbearing jerk who wants to control her life and ruin all of her ballerina dreams. But it turns out that the audio recording was very clear that Hannah said, Daniel told me that if I wanted to keep dancing, I should just keep dancing. And she said, but in my heart, I knew that I really wanted to be a kid. I wanted to raise my children. But this is a message that feminists can never accept. They'll never be able to accept. But before we get into some of the responses, I'll show you I'll let you listen to the audio recording. This is from a TikTok page, School Psych Mom, Sophie Z. She did about a minute review of this, and then she also plays the audio recording. So let's take a look.
It just keeps getting crazier. More things no one is conveniently talking about with that hit piece from Ballerina Farm and what that journalist did. First is she released a second article on Sunday. I made a video about that if you want to check that out. And then the second thing I just discovered is there's a literal podcast episode where there are clipped recordings of Hannah and Daniel answering her questions, where you can absolutely see that she twisted everything out of context in that first article. I'm going to play you some clips of the recording and you can go watch it yourself, but just some important parts that you should see. And one last thing to all the haters trying to attack me now for exposing her, they're saying she was paid off to write a second article. If you really think that little of her integrity, then you probably shouldn't listen to her in her first article anyway. Oh, and just look her up. It's very telling.
You give up a piece of yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think I would change it.
Right.
I think I was like, if you want to dance, like go dance, like we were open to anything, but I knew deep down that I wanted to raise my babies,
She seemingly loves her life there, so I'm not saying that she was kind of tricked or coerced into going at all.
We're a partnership now, like I don't feel like I'm at home raising kids by myself. Like that's hard.
Yeah.
Women need support, and when Daniel was like, okay, let's build something together, we really carry the mantle together.
And there you go, vindicated. That's what we've all been saying. Ever since this article came out, most of us knew, anyone with common sense knew that the whole thing was misconstrued and that the writer went into this, Megan Agnew, whatever her name is, she went into this with an agenda. It was predetermined what this article was going to be about. And the purpose of the article was to make motherhood and anything close to a traditional family seem oppressive. And since that article first came out, there have been so many women online that are tweeting and doing videos about how horrible it is that Daniel stole her from Juilliard. So let's take a look at this tweet from someone named Caroline Renard. She says, "The woman gave up Juilliard. You don't just get into one of the most competitive art schools because you're good. You have to be a great ballerina. They accept like 12 women and 12 men a year. I can't. And then this is just one of many examples. Just so many tweets like this of women in disbelief. They can't believe that Daniel made her give up Juilliard. He forced her to do this. And this whole Ballerina Farm debacle is just another great example of how feminists are supposedly all about choice and autonomy until a woman makes a choice that they don't approve of. That's exactly what Hannah Needleman did. Then when a woman chooses something they don't approve of, something like marriage and family, to prioritize over a career, then it's a parade of condescending insults, saying that she was forced into this marriage, saying that she was forced into pregnancy and motherhood, as if a woman like Hannah Needleman is too dumb or naive to make that choice by herself. It's actually insulting. It's incredibly insulting for all these women to claim that Hannah was coerced into this lifestyle, that she was not able to make that choice for herself. And again, that's what happens. Feminists are all about choice until you make the choice they don't approve of. And then they condescendingly tell you and they gaslight you into thinking that you weren't the one who actually made that choice. And that's because these women could never imagine, let alone allow, a woman to choose a husband and 8 beautiful children over a career, let alone a multimillionaire husband. And she talks so much in this interview about how this is the dream that she and Daniel built together. It was their shared dream. And since it came out the other day, Ballerina Farm released a reel on her Instagram, and there was a voiceover, and she essentially said they were shocked at the piece that came out because they allowed this journalist into their home. And she said it seems like a normal interview like they've done many times before for the press. But then they read the article and the onslaught of comments that came after, and they were very surprised to see that things had been misconstrued and totally taken out of context. And so she wrote more details about her own story. So on her website for Ballerina Farm, on the About Us section, she shared more of her background, more of her childhood, and more of how she met Daniel and how they decided to build this life together in her own words. And there are still feminists, who claim that she was coerced into making a decision that wasn't hers. Do you realize how insulting and offensive that is? As soon as these women make a choice that the feminists don't approve of, then they have to stoop down to telling this woman that she's not capable of making her own choices and that a husband or a man forced her into doing it. And that's what's happening on the internet. This is why it's actually, in a way, it's refreshing how honest these women are, because they are admitting to you, they are showing you very clearly that they do not believe that a woman can or should choose family and motherhood. They believe that the only choice a woman should make is a choice to chase her own career and her own personal, individual, self-isolating ambitions above all else. And anytime a woman who has talent or success chooses to be a mother and chooses to prioritize family and marriage, then that's the worst thing that could possibly happen, and they just won't condone it. They won't accept it. And the crazy thing about Hannah Neeleman is that she's probably more famous and more successful now than she would have been as a professional ballerina. I don't think people really understand how demanding, physically demanding and taxing it is to be a professional ballerina. Their professional lifespan is very short. Within a few years, she would have gotten an injury, probably gotten an eating disorder, because many of these ballerina dancers do. They have to be at such a low weight. They have to be so tiny to do these roles. And you don't really have much of a ballet career after you're like 27, maybe 30, maybe. So she would have spent a few years as a professional dancer. You would not have known who she was. She would not have been nearly as successful, because what she's done now is she's built this huge brand that is intricately tied to her family and this humongous piece of pristine land that they preserve in Utah. And they've built an online business. They ship meat and they sell all kinds of products. She's incredibly successful, a very successful businesswoman, and she's a mom of 8. So in a way, what she's doing now is even more incredible and more renowned than what she would have done as a professional dancer, but it's still not good enough for these feminists because she chose family alongside this business. She's a mom of 8, and she said in the voiceover on that recent reel, they're not done having kids yet. I'm sure they'll probably have 10 or more kids because she's young. I think she can't be over 35. I don't think she's over 35. I'm not sure. Let's see. How old is Hannah Neeleman? She's 34. Yeah, she's 34. I'm sure that they're going to have 10, maybe 11 or 12 kids. They both come from a family of 9 kids, and they're both Mormon, and Mormons, they all have big families, and they wanted big families. But even though she has garnered so much success for herself, and at this point, I mean, I wouldn't go so far to say that she's a household name, but she's pretty close. She has even more engagement and followers on her social media accounts than many celebrities and actors do. A lot of people know, almost everyone knows who Ballerina Farm is. But this success is still not good enough for these feminists because she chose family along with this success. And that's what's just so frustrating about this whole thing, is that even when a woman, in her own words, shares why she made this decision for herself, it's unacceptable to these feminists because it was never about choice and autonomy to these feminists. And that's what's frustrating, is that they sell you this package of propaganda and they sell you this lie and claim that this is all about female empowerment and we want you to make your own choices. We want you to be in control of your life. But it's not about that. They want you to make choices that they approve of. And those choices, something like focusing exclusively on a career, either delaying or completely rejecting marriage and children, not having more than maybe 1 or 2 kids, because after that, it's just too hard. How could you possibly have a life if you have 8 kids? And I visited Hannah's TikTok, the Ballerina Farm TikTok, just out of curiosity. All of the comments are still from angry feminists. Go to Greece, girl. We want to hear about you. We don't want to hear about what your kids are doing or what your husband's doing. We want to hear about you. What was your favorite dance? What was your favorite thing that you did? Tell us about you. As if Hannah's sense of self is completely separate from her family. That's what all of these comments are built on. It's built on the premise that Hannah cannot have a sense of self that is apart from her family. And for Hannah, like, her sense of self is intricately tied with her family, and that's what she chose to do. But that's unacceptable to feminists, because to these feminists, they only want the woman's self to be isolated, away from men, away from children. And I don't understand why. Why wouldn't you want your best sense of self to be related to the biggest blessings in your life, like your marriage and your family? It makes feminists so mad when even hint at the fact that a woman's sense of self should be connected to your family in some way. I'm not saying it should only be your family. I'm not saying that that should be the only thing you consider to be your sense of self. But why is it such a bad thing that Hannah's sense of self is connected to her family and her husband, her marriage, this brand that she's built with her husband, a very successful brand? It's frustrating because, again, the most frustrating part is that Hannah's own decision will never be acknowledged as her own decision because it's something they don't approve of. And these women are just so bitter and angry and mean. I've actually gotten messages from a couple people that personally know Hannah and her family. They live in Utah, and they messaged me. And this was before Hannah's response came out to the article. These people messaged me and they're like, we cannot believe what this woman did, this journalist did to the Neelemans. We know the Neelemans. We live in the area. We've known them for a while. It could not be farther from the truth. And when I initially shared these thoughts online about the article before Hannah even responded to it, I had a message. I don't know what her name is. I forgot her name, but her entire profile is built on like women being emotionally abused by men. So she responded, she's like, yikes, you're an idiot. This is called coercion or something like that. I forgot the exact term that she used, but she was telling me, she was telling me that Hannah's marriage and Hannah's decisions were entirely built on coercion. And I would just love to know what her response is now that Hannah came out and spoke in her own words. I wonder what you think that's still coercion, honey? You really think that Hannah's that naive and that stupid and that dumb and that whatever it might be, dumb, I guess, whatever, dumb to make those decisions for herself? These women are unbelievable. They so desperately want mothers and wives to appear miserable. You're not allowed to be a happy wife and mother. You're just not. And don't get me wrong. If you've listened to my show, you know that I have been critical of the trad wife trend because it's really not rooted in true tradition and it's wrapped up in just an Instagram aesthetic. And I am not a fan of the hyper-individualized nuclear family that separates women from their community and their extended family. You've heard me be critical of the trad wife trend. But the other extreme is even worse. These feminists who make it seem like motherhood and wifehood are always miserable endeavors. And it's just leaving the younger generation with nothing realistic because you look at these women in their late teens, early 20s, they're constantly looking at us. They're looking at what we're saying about motherhood. They're looking at what's online, what's on social media, what's on TV, what's in movies. And they're constantly being fed an extreme on both ends. The extreme of modern feminism, which says that motherhood is horrible and it steals away your identity. And then the other extreme of the trad wife 1950s marketing ad pinup thing where the woman she's like not allowed to work. She's not allowed to have anything outside of the home and she only belongs in the kitchen. Like neither of these extremes is helpful to women, young women who are shaping their own opinions and shaping their own thoughts on marriage and their own future. Neither of these extremes is helpful. That's why I wish that more women who had a platform would start creating a more realistic idea of what it means to be a successful wife and mother. I actually think Ballerina Farm is a nice example of that because she's obviously a very committed mother, but she's still a businesswoman. And that in and of itself is like not considered trad because I've seen a lot of trad people online that criticize moms who have any sort of side business from home. They're like, you're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to focus entirely and only on your kids. I think Ballerina Farm is a nice example of how it's not really about this boss babe versus trad wife argument. I find that to be such a tired argument already. It's not one or the other. There's a more realistic, holistic, whole way of viewing mothers and wives and women. And I don't think that young girls, teens, girls in their early 20s are getting that realistic view. I mean, I can think of a couple of kind of celebrities that seem to be, I kind of like Blake Lively. She's a mother of 4 girls. She seems to me, from what I've seen, a very devoted mom. loves her husband, thinks the world of Ryan Reynolds, obviously is a very hands-on mom, and she has her own career, and her career has slowed down a little bit since she became a mom. She's not doing as much as she used to. Eva Mendes, she has said in interviews before that she kind of quit acting, at least took a huge step back from acting ever since becoming a mom, because she wanted to just be at home and be with her kids and let Ryan Gosling take on more of the acting roles. But does that mean that she totally quit working? No, she had a side business. She did this business of like a sponge that tells you when it's dirty or something. I don't know what the product is. Maybe I should give it a shot. But I think these are a little bit better examples than what we've seen of these two extremes online. Just because you have professional dreams and you want to keep something going as you are a mom, that doesn't mean that you're not a good mom. You can do a little bit of, you can still have some professional dreams and some things going on from home if you're raising children at the same time. You're going to have to be very wise about how you split your time, especially when your kids are young. But it's okay if you don't want to do that too. If you don't want to have a side business, if you just want to focus on kids, that's fine too. But my whole point is that these two extremes are not helpful to women. And we keep shoving down these polar opposites down women's throats, young women's throats, and it's just not helping at all. I don't think it's very helpful. So Hannah Neeleman is not oppressed. She seems very happy to me. Does she seem tired? Yeah, she seems tired. And people are so hung up about that one line in the article that Daniel said she has to spend a week in bed from exhaustion. And people were in my mentions and they're like, what do you think about the fact that Hannah Neeleman has to spend weeks in bed because she's so exhausted? Okay, first of all, it was a week. And is that something that we love to hear? Okay, maybe not, but does she look tired? Yes, but to me, she seems very fulfilled and very happy. And this is, again, another product of this generation. They cannot imagine hard work and sacrifice. They cannot imagine a woman working really hard because it's just, we've been taught to take the easy way out over and over and over again. And that's what we've been taught to do. And that's why motherhood and marriage is so unappealing to many millennials and even Gen Zers, because it takes a lot of work. But no, Hannah Neeleman is not oppressed. She seems to be doing really well to me. And kudos to her. I'm tired with 2 kids. I don't know how she does it with 8. And also, the article was very deceiving because it made it sound like she has zero help, when it was clear in there that they have people cleaning the house. They have people educating the kids. It's homeschool, but they obviously hire probably multiple tutors to educate the kids. They don't have a full-time nanny. That was something that Daniel didn't want, and obviously something that Hannah didn't want either. She wants to be there to raise her own kids, but it's not like they don't have any help. Like, they are obviously rich enough to have help, I'm sure. And they obviously have a whole team to like edit their videos and help with their online business. Like, it's clear that they have help. So it was unfair to misconstrue this idea that they don't have any help, because they do have help. Don't forget to join my August hormone challenge, ladies. That's all we have today. So as we end, I want to tell you about the challenge for the 30 days in August. Is August 30 days? Because the challenge is 30 days. And I'm thinking to myself, August 24 calendar, it might be 31 days. No, yeah, August is 31 days. But the challenge is 30 days. Is it 31? Okay, let me look on Apple Calendar. Yeah, August is 31 days, but the challenge is 30 days. Every day I'm releasing some exclusive content in relation to healthy hormones, helping you to regulate your menstrual cycle, prevent pregnancy naturally, lose some excess body fat. If you have some stubborn weight gain, a lot of it has to do with hormones. So every day you're going to be getting something, whether it's a workout or a meal plan or a webinar or an exclusive interview with an expert or a guided breath work exercise. There's stuff happening every day in the month of August. And all you got to do is join the Telegram group, and it's only $1 a day to join. And I've got 4, maybe 5 amazing experts lined up. You're going to hear from a hormone expert to talk about regulating your menstrual cycle. She's going to give a really great presentation on how to understand your menstrual cycle. You're going to hear from a holistic OBGYN who has a private practice and treats a lot of women of all ages. You're going to hear from a holistic family nurse practitioner and a fertility awareness educator. It's going to help teach you about how to naturally track ovulation and naturally prevent pregnancy without synthetic hormones. We got a lot of great stuff. So it's already started, but we're still in the very beginning of the month. So you can still join, and you'll still, say you join August 8th, for example, you'll still get access to all of the 7 days before that. So you'll get the whole month, even doesn't matter when you join. But if you want to learn how to take care of your hormones, doesn't matter if you're in your 20s and you want to just boost your fertility and optimize your fertility, or whether you're in your 40s or 50s, maybe you're approaching perimenopause, you want to learn more about how to handle menopause, it's the right group for you. So join us. The link is going to be in the show notes. And that's all I got today. Thank you, everybody. My kids stayed asleep during this whole episode. Isn't it a miracle? It's a miracle every time that happens. When the kids are both asleep, it's like such a miracle. I don't know how Hannah does it with 8 kids. I could do 3. I could probably do 3, 4. I don't know if we will. I could do 3 or 4, but I don't know if I could do 8. It takes a special person. Kudos to you. I have a friend that just had their 6th child, and they're doing great. I don't know if I could, but they're doing amazing. Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.